This is Samir Parmar with the Machine Vision Group at SICK USA. Now that you have already seen the first two tutorials of the inspector that walked you through connecting your inspector unit with all the electrical connections and mounting, as well as allowing you to use the SOPA software to communicate and connect to the inspector, I will now walk you through some of the tools that are available in the SOPA software for you to configure your inspector unit for your application. You should be able to see a similar view as I have right now. I have three columns. The first one is for the FAQs. The second one is the main view. And within the main view, I have a tab for live image. And if I turn or move my object, you can kind of see. I have a tab for reference image, which is blank right now. This is where I will put down a teach image with all the pattern match tools and all the detailed inspections. And the logged images tab. This will contain all the last 30 images that the inspector stores for any application. On the extreme right over here, this is where my detailed settings are going to be for image, for my object locator pattern match tool, for my detailed inspections, my output settings, my result parameters, and so forth. As any application requires a good image, this is what we will start with to make sure that we have a nice, decent, crispy image to work with. And I'm going to click on edit over here, and I will start with my image settings by clicking on auto to adjust the exposure automatically for the unit. Of course, I can see that my focus is really messed up. So in order to adjust my focus, I need to use my Allen key tool and adjust the potentiometer knob found on the top of the unit itself. And when I do that, mechanically, the green bar over here on the top will expand or extend to the right over here as my focus starts getting better. So try to notice that change over here. When the focus starts getting better, not only can you visually see it, but you can also see the green bar or the inspector telling you that your focus is starting to get better. You may have already assumed the application, which is basically to make sure that the bottle has a cap on it, as well as the label has been applied on the bottle. And the other aspects of the image settings are whether I want to use an internal lighting that is integrated on the inspector or not. In our case, we do want to use it. We could have chosen to use external lighting if we wanted to. Triggering is another option. You could have it free running, whereby inspector acquire images continuously, or you could choose to be triggered by input number 3, and a sensor would then tell the inspector when to capture images. Lastly but not least, you could use the full sensor image size, which is 384 by 384, or you could change it to reduce your field of view as well as cut down your cycle time. For our purposes, I will use the field of view. Next thing is basically to teach the reference object by just simply clicking teach reference object, and what that does is basically that places an object locator around your entire object, and the settings for the object locator pop up on this side. I can minimize and move my object locator, and if for any reason it gets deleted, I can go and create a new one. Remember, all the tools are going to be found at the bottom of the image during the reference image mode. So I will select an object locator, and I will go and draw my object locator around over here. My edge strength, I can choose to make it slightly loose so that I don't have these edges from the middle highlighting over here. And when need be, I can even choose to create a mask for the middle region over here, so that the inner edges that are getting highlighted do not show up at all. And I will slightly loosen my tolerance again. With this, I can extend over here my match percentage to, let's say, 72%. My rotation, if it is one, I can allow my rotation to go all the way to 180 degrees if I want it. In my application, that is not desired, so I'm going to keep it pretty low over here. My object, however, can be anywhere in the field of view, so I will leave that checked. And I'm gonna go and look at my results now for my live image. So I can kind of see that my object locator is a pass and it finds that object. If I move my object to the left and to the right, we can kind of still see it's a pass. I do have another bottle over here, and if I replace that so that I have a bottle without a cap, now my object locator is a fail because my bottle does not have a cap there. So that was pretty easy. Put that one back in the field of view. Aha, why do I have a fail right now? Well, it's probably that my standoff distance from the inspector to the object has changed. But if I say that allow scaled objects, now this is changing to pass, which means that we have a capability to be further and closer to the inspector, which makes the image size larger, and the inspector can compensate for that scaling factor if I wanted to. Okay, so once I have already placed my object locator, my second inspection is basically I want to make sure that this label has been applied. And what I'm going to do to make sure that is I'm going to simply insert a tool called pixel counter, and I will go and just create my rectangle around over here. And what this does is basically I'm trying to count the number of darker pixels, because if black pixels are there, that means that there is a print on that label, which means that the label has been applied. So I will adjust my intensity range slightly over here to accommodate all the black pixels, and then I will select my criteria for how many minimum pixels there should be seen at least in order for me to confirm that the label has been found. Now in my result, I have an object locator pass, I have a pixel counter pass, and I can go and see my live image. So if I rotate this, I should be able to now I'm blocking some black pixels at the bottom, obviously, so I need to be careful of how I do this. If I move around, I'm getting a pass for everything. And if I take this outside my field of view and put a good bottle which has got a cap over there, but it doesn't have any black pixels, the label is not there, therefore my object locator is a pass, but my pixel counter is a fail. That's how simple it is to configure applications using Inspector. My output settings, by default object is not located, that's my output 1. My output number 2 is if a detail is failed, and I'm allowed up to 32 detail inspections using the inspector. And my output number 3 is if all are passed. I can however change within I20 as far as what I want each of the outputs to do. I10 by default does only that. I20 however gives you that capability to change this to whatever you want them to be, and you can obviously set the minimum delay and how long you want to hold these outputs for. Lastly but not least, assumingly that you want to mount this on a customer line and you want to record images as your application is moving, you could do that. Simply go to Inspector I20 tab over here and say record live images, and select a folder where you want to record your images in. And what that allows you to do is basically record images on your customer line, so 5 images, 8 images, and so forth, and stop the recording whenever you want it. Obviously right now the images were being recorded on a continuous mode. If I had it my trigger configured over here, my images would only be captured when a trigger sensor triggers the inspector. That way I can control what images I want to save, and then I can work on those images using the SOPAs at a later time. To summarize what we have done, important things are to first get a good image, then the first tool to use is object locator to locate the object, and then that is followed by detail inspection tools. The 3 tools that we have is a pixel counter, which simply counts the number of pixels that are available in the region of interest. It doesn't look for contour. That's why, although this contour is messed up and nowhere close to this contour, because the number of pixels are simply matching, we get a pass. We have another tool called edge pixel counter. This works in a very similar fashion. It only counts edge pixels, and again it doesn't look for contour, simply counts the number of pixels. The contour tool is different from those previous 2 tools in the sense that notice that this contour matches exactly the contour that we taught. However, the positioning of the contour is different position in the given region of interest, and it is a fail. So the contour tool requires not only for the contour to match, but also the contour has to be within the same given position as the taught contour. Testing and tweaking, we discussed all the outputs we have available and what they are dedicated for. The Inspector i20 allows us to configure the outputs in any fashion we want us to be, while the Inspector i10 has the outputs configured in this manner. Thank you for your time.